Welcome, everybody, to Innovation Delivered. I have an esteemed panel here today to engage with you over the next 30 minutes. We will likely be talking about first, middle, and last mile, but the theme of this discussion is next mile, as in what's next in a ever-evolving fulfillment landscape. I am Michael Haswell. I'm the Vice President of Global Partnerships at Octane, which is most of attendees will know has the flagship ShipStation and ShipStation API products. I'm responsible for building out our partner ecosystem. The commerce ecosystem is incredibly complex and nuanced, as we'll learn over the next 30 minutes. I come with 25 years of e-commerce experience at big tech platforms like Google, venture-backed startups that have experienced both outcomes, positive and negative, and that has brought me to this place today. And I'm happy to welcome, again, two esteemed panelists, the Aarons, as they're known. Let's start with Hodes, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Michael. Hey, everyone. My name is Aaron Hodes. I lead sales at DaVinci Micro Fulfillment, where we work with large established retailers through a distributed multi-node network of micro fulfillment centers. We're helping to modernize their Amazon operations, everything from vendor central, direct fulfillment, seller fulfill prime, and forward deployed inventory strategies. Prior to that, I spent the majority of my career helping the sales and go-to-market team at ShipBob, where I was there from 2017 to 2023. Learned a lot, and helping SMB and mid-market brands scale up their e-com fulfillment needs. And started my career at C.H. Robinson, where I gained a deep understanding of the global freight market and how the upstream supply chain really impacts the brokerage side. So excited to be here and have a lot of respect for you, Michael, and of course you as well, Aaron Rubin. So thanks again.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me here. So I started in e-com. Actually, never worked anywhere. I started a company in college selling martial arts apparel online, and then in 2013 founded ShipHero. And today we serve about 1,000 buildings. They're mostly 3PLs, third-party logistics companies, providing outsourced fulfillment to omnichannel brands. So people selling just online or selling online and to companies like Walmart, Target, Sephora, Nordstrom, etc. So we're just a software. So we're warehouse management software, not in the buildings, but helping run the buildings by providing good software.
Aaron, I'm glad you mentioned your martial arts background. There's got to be sort of a jiu-jitsu theme throughout this discussion as we talk about the fluid environment in which we find ourselves from a fulfillment perspective. I'd love to start actually with Hodes. First question, it's around sort of balancing scaling efficiency and efficiency. What does scalable customer-friendly fulfillment look like today? And how can brands scale efficiently?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can answer it through my entire decade working in this space. I think today the model has shifted pretty considerably for a need for both fast delivery and finding a fulfillment provider that can actually scale with them today, tomorrow, and over the next couple of years. The brands and the large retailers that we primarily work with, they're increasingly moving away from a single node operation toward a more distributed fulfillment strategy that allows them to have their inventory placed closer to the end consumer, which is just a byproduct of the experience that they are looking to achieve. Most of the retailers that we work with are large vendors on Amazon and are also exploring seller fulfill prime, where that is a need to forward deploy their inventory and not necessarily hold 6 to 8 months, but look at demand, forecasting and ultimately hold 3 to 6 weeks of inventory and consistently replenishing to help improve their order to cash cycle. And I think the secret where I'm seeing the brands that I'm talking to on the day-to-day is not necessarily like throwing more square feet from like a warehousing perspective, but ultimately using a more like modular infrastructure that really scales dynamically with demand. And so it's a combination of the physical network in combination with national, regional, and local carriers that ultimately drives, I think, the next frontier of what fulfillment is going to look like. But I'm sure Aaron Rubin has a different opinion on it. So would love to hear what he thinks.
Yeah, so I mean, Aaron's current company, DaVinci, I know his colleague Corey, great company, provide a great service for brands that need to get product there quickly. And ShipBob obviously also, 60 facilities or so,
Yep.
super capable of providing distributed fulfillment. Most of the industry doesn't do that. Most of the industry is in one or two. I think even at ShipBob, that's probably the fact. Even though they have 60 warehouses, I would guess 80% of the SKUs are in one, not 60. And the reason for that is a couple of fold. One is for people that have like a lot of SKUs, not a super fast turn across those SKUs. And a lot of split shipments once you get past one or two warehouses, right? So if you've got 1,000 SKUs and you're in 5 different warehouses, that means you got to have like all 1,000 in those warehouses, or you get splits, and splits are super expensive. So for like apparel and people with a lot of SKU proliferation, it doesn't work great. For people that are more like fast moving products, so like in other words, like fast cycles, fast fashion would be a prime example, where they're constantly getting in new SKUs. It's hard to distribute that across multiple warehouses. Like if you have a drop model where you're like, I'm going to bring in 10,000 units, I'm going to sell them all in a week. It's a lot easier just to drop it all in one warehouse and just ship it versus like having to distribute it all. And then the other challenge with distributed inventory is around retail. So if you're going to be selling a lot of units out to, Target, Walmart, and those companies, Costco, you need that inventory available to ship in bulk. So when you start to split it, that just becomes a little bit more of a challenge. These are all overcomable problems, but that's the reason why I think we still see that the vast majority of brands are still in one or two warehouses. For the brands, like, we've got a brand working with us that's in at least 8. There's certainly brands where they save a ton of money, particularly using regional carriers by being local. So, this company I'm thinking of, they've got a pretty heavy product, not a lot of SKUs, and they're able to use local carriers, companies you probably never heard of for most people, like Viho, Uni, Jitsu, actually. Mentioning Jiu-Jitsu. They're called Jitsu. They used to be called, what was Jitsu used to be called? They renamed
Axel Hire?
Axel Hire, yeah, correct. Yeah, so little, smaller local companies can provide point-to-point delivery cheaper, but you got to be within the region. So if you've got like a heavy product, moves fast, relative small number of SKUs, you can save dollars per order by distributing inventory. And that's like DaVinci's an amazing company for that use case. And then if you've got like, hey, I've got apparel, you'll go down the wrong path if you start thinking about being in 5 warehouses. Think about 1, maybe 2. Just my opinion.
No, I think it's about what you're ultimately trying to solve for and across what specific channel, right? I think the retailers that we work with primarily are very, very large, multinational brands, and we're helping them on very specific channels. So when it comes to like, they're on the 1P side. So in Amazon, the ecosystem, you can either be a seller or you can be a vendor. We support both. The majority of the volume that we push through our network today is through what's called direct fulfillment, which is the fulfillment of eaches, a traditional like direct consumer order, where Amazon still buys the inventory and cuts the PO, but they're doing the fulfillment of eaches, and it gives a lot of flexibility for a number of different category of brands. I would say housewares, large, bulky CPG. There's a number, I won't get into the nuances of like, Amazon per se, but there is a reason why direct fulfillment is very attractive for a number of different brands, both from a margin standpoint and a customer experience standpoint.
Yeah, in that model, you guys are basically like an Amazon warehouse, right? Like it's your own building, but like Amazon treats it as their own warehouse, right?
Not necessarily like Amazon's not treating it as their own. It's like it's set up as its own separate nodes. We have like our own like warehousing code that we set up through our like proprietary, like middleware that we've created. But I think it's quite the dichotomy from where I spent 7 years at ShipBob, where they are a tech-enabled fulfillment provider where they own and operate only a few of their buildings and then operate in this kind of 4PL, for lack of a better term, model. And I think at the end of the day, like there's no like wrong way or right way to go about doing it. Everyone has their own preferences about what they want, and ultimately like what are the goals that what are the challenges that they're currently seeing, and ultimately what is the ideal state that they want to get to. And I think Aaron and I serve probably a fair amount of crossover, but again, it's just to each their own, right? Ultimately what they're looking to solve for. But what I often say about ShipHero is they have the most strong following I have seen on social media. It is crazy how many people are repping your company, man. So it's a kudos to you and the leadership team and all the folks that work there.
Well, and I'll double click on that because I think one of the reasons ShipHero has such a following is there's a thirst for thought leadership and advice. And so lots to unpack here. So I heard, let's take a digitally native brand.
Mm-hmm.
I heard DTC to wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously self-fulfillment to that first third-party warehouse to multiple nodes. And I heard national carriers to regional carriers. Question for both of you, jump in as you see fit. I'm a small brand. How am I sequencing and prioritizing those in terms of self-fulfillment to working with a 3PL? At what point does my DTC business suggest I ought to look at wholesale? And when do I move from national carriers to regional? How would I make sense of that world as a young brand?
Ruben, go ahead. Take it.
So I think it's changed a lot in my time in the industry. So it used to be, I would say, like if you're small, run your own warehouse, because like, there was, DHL and some really big companies that knew how to serve brands well, but you had to be like, Fortune 1000 to do business with them. And the companies that were serving the small brands were not good. The 3PLs were not good, way back in 2013, 2015. That's changed. Some of the tech players like ShipBob, ShipMonk, a lot of others are able to provide quality at scale. So you can be a company shipping 1,000 orders a month, and you could get a 3PL that's going to do an amazing job for you. If you if you had asked me in 2015, I would say there's zero shot you'll ever find a company that'll do a good job for you at that scale. So it's earlier. It's earlier than it used to be, where it pays to outsource. And I guess I'll pause there. That was the first part of the question. I'll let Hodes take maybe the next part of the question.
No, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. When it comes to national, regional, and local carriers, I think you have to have a combination of both, and you have to have a diversified carrier portfolio. And you really cannot get any of those economies of scale if you are doing your own fulfillment in-house. And oftentimes what you find with, emerging brands is that they can fulfill 10, 15, 20 orders a day because it's not taking them a lot of time, and it's like a slow burn. And then over time, they will quite literally just get frustrated with the amount of time, effort, and resources that they have to spend. And so that leads them down the path of looking through the 3PL, procurement, process. And so there are a number of different 3PLs that service the SMB market and, lower, mid-market today. And then it's really up to the brands to either go out on their own or use, what we've really seen over the last couple of years are matchmaking services really come into the fold and help brands find them. But what we have found with this like duopoly between FedEx and UPS that really, I think, dominated for much of the 2000s and through the mid 2010s, and you see the emergence of regional carriers like UDS, like CDL, OnTrack, LSO, GLS, right? Like you're seeing a number of different carriers pop up, and they are offering extremely cheaper rates. And you, as a brand where outbound parcel shipping is the overwhelming majority of your spend, regardless of whether or not you self-fulfill or use a third-party provider, like you really need to be constantly looking at the carrier portfolio to make sure that you do have a healthy blend where you have national coverage and then regional and local coverage for, same day, let's just call it 1 to 2 day delivery. And frankly, a lot of those regional carriers can just do it better, faster, and cheaper than the nationals. And so again, it's about balancing. And how do you balance cost, speed, and efficiency across the last mile? So you're seeing a ton pop up. Aaron mentioned like Uni has been a really big player that's come into the space over the last couple of years. Veho has really done well and taken a ton of market share. I worked for a company for about a year that attempted to do something similar, ultimately didn't pan out. But yeah, a lot of great last mile carrier selection that gives a lot of autonomy and flexibility for brands of all sizes.
And I'll jump in on that because that's another thing where reality has changed. So in the past, really UPS, FedEx were the only, and DHL in their international segment, were the really only reliable ways to get a package to a customer, and that's no longer the case. Those are still amazing companies, but now there are other companies that can also provide a almost 100% delivery and over 95% on-time delivery at a reasonable price. So if it's something that, like, you looked at again in 2020 and you're like, well, there's no good options, that's probably changed. The market's changed. The companies have gotten better. There's new companies. I don't know if VO was around in 2020.
Right.
Yeah. Uni was maybe it comes from like a bunch of Chinese like Temu, Shein, AliExpress. I don't even think they existed in 2020 either. Now they're pretty big. So yeah, I would say look at the market. Look again. It's time to take another look. See what the regionals. See if they can serve you. They're not going to serve 100% of your customers, but in the mix, they often can provide significant savings most importantly, without degrading the customer experience.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously, as a multi-carrier solution, we at ShipStation are focused a lot on this component. I want to shift gears a little bit in terms of managing complexity. I think all of us are thinking about intelligence, orchestration, automation from a ShipStation perspective, helping the brand select the right carrier for the right consumer and the right use case. How is automation transforming the warehouse, and how should brands think about investing in automation?
Aaron, you go, because I know you guys have invested a ton in the hardware and the software.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money in this space. So the current state is computers make very good managers. They make very poor pickers and packers. So if you don't have a budget of at least $10 million to bring in a robotic system, it'll probably fail. Like, we've seen that. Like, we work with a bunch of them. Most of them fail or fail to provide a significant ROI. The hype is well beyond what the technology is. Like, if you're expecting like a robot arm to like pick things out of a bin, put them in another bin, like, the success rate there is very low.
Right.
Again, there are solutions that are very good, but they're very expensive. On the intelligence layer, though, the exact opposite is true. Systems now can route, batch, predict labor way better than the best warehouse manager ever could, and like super cheap. So instead of having your $100,000 plus employees focused on trying to guess how much labor they need, where to put various people, like, your technology solutions can already do that for you. And that warehouse manager now does what he or she is best at, which is coaching, managing the people, watching for exceptions, improving process. So like it's underhyped. The AI systems today are amazing at providing that level of managerial supervision and expertise. And then on the actual like pick and pack side, it's not there. It'll get there, but it's not there today.
Bodie's, anything to add?
No, I think especially on like the carrier routing and the order orchestration piece, that has definitely come a long way over the last 4 to 5 years. I would say you've seen a number of different companies really, come to the fold. And I would agree from an automation standpoint on the robotics. Yeah, it's just, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. I don't think I have any additional value to add outside of what Aaron said, but I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting coming from over a decade at Google. When you talk about AI and agentic commerce, it all tends to be on the consumer-facing experience side.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bells and whistles, a lot of hand waving, in my opinion. I think the real leverage is in this part of the business to drive insights and optimization, to reduce costs, which is what most brands spend most of their time worrying about. Maybe let's turn our attention there. Is how do you advise brands to sort of invest ahead versus investing into the demand? Is there sort of managing costs but trying to drive optimization? How do you help them make those decisions? Maybe Aaron R.
Easiest thing is outsource it, and then you don't have to worry about it. So the biggest problem for brands is, and having run a brand for many years, it's a very up and down business. Like the reality is you're not going to be a straight line up. There's going to be a lot of dips and then some fast ups, and they're super hard to predict. Some of them are around seasonality, right? Like peak season is going to be busy, but also right now it's tariffs. There was COVID, but there's, the iOS changes. They didn't make maybe the mainstream news, but they really hit when basically you couldn't advertise as well. It really hit a lot of brands. And when you come out with like, hey, I'm going to make an investment that's going to have a 5-year ROI based on a 20% compound annual growth rate of my business, that's really hard to do on the brand side. All the brands I know, they miss their forecasts up or down significantly after 1 year, after 2 or 3. Like it's not even in the ballpark. So what I always say is if you outsource, you work with a partner, you work with a big enough partner, they'll have the flexibility where if you double your business, like it's fine. And if it drops in half, it's also fine because they've got 20, 30, 100 other customers. It all comes out in the sauce, right? Yeah. When you invest yourself, and like we saw that recently with like Zulily would be an example. Like it was super sad. I was in a couple of their buildings that they had invested $50 million in just a few years ago and were liquidating because demand was going up. They're like, we need this capacity. They put all the money in there. Then because of Temu and Shein, maybe other reasons, demand started to fall off. You already borrowed that money. You got to pay it off. And like that imbalance of expected demand and real demand killed what could have been a very good business. It's just a shame to see that much money invested and lost. And when you work with a partner, there's a little more risk share.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the changes between sort of when you got into this business, sort of the mid 2013, 2015, 2017, with targeting. Google and Facebook ads were incredibly cheap and capital was cheap. And I just don't think the days of the Allbirds or the Warby Parkers or the Bonobos are today's reality. And even those brands are experiencing a new reality. If a brand were to make one investment beyond outsourcing, one strategic investment in the fulfillment space, what would your recommendations be? Or maybe if that's too pointed a question, step back. What's your general advice for an emerging brand in this environment?
Why do you take that one, Hoodies?
Don't Google best 3PL.
I like that. Great answer.
Don't do that, please.
Is that a play to enter the same query into ChatGPT? Is that going to render a better result?
Maybe I saw that going on the other week. No, I think you have large companies that spend a lot on marketing that will take over the search results, and there's nothing really behind that comment outside of you need to. This is why I think there has been this matchmaking service that has really come to the fold, both on the 3PL side and the brand side. Like, you need to work with a consultant that really understands the nuances of the 3PL, and go talk with the operators, go to the warehouse, see how their team works. Do you have a level of comfort? Is the pricing correct? Do you feel that this is going to be someone that you can grow with over the next 12, 24, 36 months? It's been said time and time again. I did not coin this phrase, but it is a marriage. And with how frequently people switch their 3PLs, I feel like if they did more research on the front end and actually interviewed current customers and even interviewed customers that churned, they would have a much more holistic understanding instead of starting their search off in Google or going to read a blog. So that's my 2 cents. About it.
Maybe as the bridge to Ruben, because I know he has a point of view here. I think brands can devalue this part of fulfillment as sort of a commodity service. And I think the best relationships, and probably why Ruben has such a wide following on LinkedIn, is you want a thought partner that will help you see sort of around the corner or where the puck is going, or whatever metaphor you want to use. Imagine, Mr. Ruben, you would agree?
Yeah, no, Aaron said it perfectly. From the 3PL perspective, I always say good 3PLs don't actually make money in the first year of a partnership because they invest a lot of time and energy to make it successful, but they make significant money year 2 and 3. So if everyone's not aligned on building a long-term relationship, it does not work for any of the parties. And price matters, but like people, if you're not in the, if you're of a decent scale, you need to be able to get in a building and look at what they're doing, but also match the size to the size of your company, right? Like, I see people who are like, hey, I want to work with, I don't know, Siva Logistics. And it's like, you're a small company. Siva's a huge company. The metaphor I always, or like sort of like the sniff test I always use is, if you had a problem and you want to speak to the CEO, owner of that company, or some C-level person at that company, are you too small for them to take your call? If yes, don't go with them. You want someone where, not that you're going to call the CEO for every problem, but if you have a major problem, the CEO or the CMO or the CRO or COO will take your call and work with you. And if you're like, I'm way too small for them to ever do that, then you're way too small to work with them. Work with someone who's appropriately sized for your business.
Great point.
Don't rush it. Take the time. Take the time to get it right the first time so that you're not moving every 1 to 2 years.
Right. I want to be sensitive to time and wrap up here soon, but Hodes, Ruben, any parting shot for this community of brands and how they should think about this space?
There is something new that happens, or a change, a very large change, to Aaron's point. Whether it was the iOS changes this year, it is the tariffs. You need to be in lockstep with your fulfillment provider. You need to be providing them forecasts. You need to be understanding what your total cost to serve is with your fulfillment provider. And please, please, please continue to talk with them. I am a firm believer in making it work instead of leaving. Work with your rep. Make sure that you guys are on the same page at all times through the good and the bad, and you will get through it. So that's my parting message for this group.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking for a provider, you can talk to Hodes, you can talk to me. I know Aaron helps a lot of people. I do as well. Like, happy to just talk and try to point you in the right direction. And my last parting words of wisdom, because I got this wrong, is if you're an e-commerce brand, especially now, but watch cash flow, whether you do like a 13-week rolling average, rolling forecast, or whatever methodology you want to use. I've seen really good brands get in trouble because they didn't plan their cash flow. And like they had a really good business. They just, if you don't have cash, you don't have cash. That's it. That's the way it is. And then if you start taking out like those short-term debt things, those are almost always a death spiral. Like they're very rarely the right choice because they're just so expensive to pay back. So you got to plan your cash flow. If that means bring in a smaller order or spend less on marketing and grow slower, that's fine. You can survive that. If it takes you an extra 6 months to hit your number, it's fine. But if you run out of cash, often you can come back from that. So just watch cash flow. It's a mistake that entrepreneurs always make because we're always excited. We always think everyone's thing's going to work out, but cash is finite.
Yeah, I think this notion of the all-in founder is, for the most part, valid. But in this environment, I think the key terms are flexibility. And Aaron Rubin, to your point about scaling up or scaling down, adaptability. And it takes a village. So I want to thank Aaron Hodes and Aaron Rubin for joining me on this journey. They're all easily accessible on LinkedIn, as am I, if there are follow-up questions. I'd also like to make a pitch as we, as ShipStation, integrate even more deeply with sort of the fulfillment side of the house. We do have a new set of warehouse management capabilities to complement our partners in this space. We have an exclusive offer just for consumers of this webinar. So please go to those URLs and avail yourself of the free trial and the exclusive offer. Otherwise, best of luck to those brands here. And thanks again to the Aarons.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the invite.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day.